Well, welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today is a video I was not expecting to make for quite some time now, but we are going to be tearing apart the VA STI. In the last video, I told you guys that I was going to push this car off to the side and focus on some other cars in the meantime, because this car has sucked everything from me. But unfortunately, I have to wait about 2 weeks before I can start on the Hawkeyes. I forgot to send the heads off to get rebuilt. They've been sitting on my shelf for quite some time now. So although everything is ordered to get these cars running, the heads are off getting rebuilt. I dropped them off this morning. So we have 2 weeks of time we need to fill. So I'm going to be reviving the STI. Now, when I say reviving, yes, this car is going to be getting a new heart. New motor is getting assembled today, I think. Not quite sure. Regardless, I have a new motor for this car, and Josh and I sat down and talked because I told him I wanted this car to sit. But deep down, it is the beginning of race season. I want to be able to race as much as possible. So we came on a compromise. We are putting a new motor in this car. We're turning the car way down just to get used to the car on the track and start dialing in the car from there. And then we can ramp up power. I think that is going to be the better decision. I've been chasing this 1,000 horsepower number for so damn long, and that was not a good thing to chase after, a number. So right now we are just working on getting this car to go A to B down the track. Our track opens up on the 28th of this month. We have 2 weeks to get this car ready. We'll be doing the tear down here at my shop today, getting it torn down to a long block. And then we are actually going to be heading out to Josh's shop, and we are going to be putting this car together at Josh's. Obviously Josh is an expert with this type of stuff, so we will be getting this car together properly. Also, it is a sponsored car with Josh, so it just makes sense that we get this car proper, making sure this car is flawless in and out. I think that will benefit us quite a bit. Obviously, this is a sponsored car, and Josh wants to see it go down the track as much as I do. So that is going to be the game plan for the next 2 weeks. Since the unfortunate fire, I still haven't even washed the car. I'll give this car a nice wash after I get the motor pulled. But I've just had this car sit. I have not looked at the oil. I have not done anything. So it'll be interesting to see the failures that we find in this process. But stay tuned. We're gonna get this motor pulled out today, see if we can find the damage. I'm thinking it is a bent rod, which is very, very difficult to believe we bent this rod. That's what it sounds like, but I don't know. We'll tear this apart, see what's going on, see how the bearings look and whatnot, and I don't know, stay tuned for this journey of building this car properly. I should say this time. We'll be bringing it out to Josh's. We'll be having supervision, if you so will call it, and we're gonna make some good power still and go down the track. What the? Interesting. Obviously, I have the motor out of the car now. I'm going to take off the pressure plate and all the discs. And as you guys probably just saw, that is not normal whatsoever. So the flywheel, the flywheel somehow came loose. So maybe it is a good thing that we found this now as opposed to launching it at the track. But yeah, that is not normal by any means. I'm very confused because I know for a fact I used Loctite and torqued it to the proper torque spec. 65 foot-pounds is what I torqued that to. So, interesting. Yeah, that's not normal. Well, if this crank was salvageable at first, it no longer is. As you guys can see, a lot of impact that happened on the crank, which I'm still confused on how this happened. You guys can see it has marring or whatever, damage on the back of the flywheel as well, obviously mate to this crank. But yeah, this got absolutely annihilated. Granted, this crank was 99.9% likely garbage, as there's any failure, the crank always is bad. So that's unfortunate. I hope we can get that flywheel to be able to use. I don't know if resurfacing it or anything would help it. I've never had an issue like this before in the past. Yeah, I'm just confused on what happened. Before I get my hopes up too much right now, I just realized when it was knocking on the dyno, it didn't sound like normal rod knock. It sounded, if anything, like a bent rod. I don't know if I picked that up on camera for you guys. I don't know why this crossed my mind, but since that flywheel was very loose, you guys saw how floppy it was. I wonder if the noise that we thought was rod knock, bent rod, was actually just the pressure plate, or not the pressure plate, the flywheel onto the crank. So my hopes are very, very high right now that when I drain this oil, there's gonna be no metal in it, and that would be a huge relief. But I hope I didn't get my hopes up too much though, because that noise, it sounds, from hearing what that noise would make with the loose pressure plate, flywheel, that might be what our issue is. We might have not taken out a motor, but we're gonna go ahead, throw the oil pan under it, get it drained, and crossing our fingers that it was just the backed out flywheel. There's already some metal shavings in this oil pan from the Hawkeyes. I couldn't get all of it out, but it'll be pretty abundant if this has a bad bearing.
Ram.
The motor's fine.
No metal?
No.
Hell yeah.
I mean, it's fucking milky, but there's no metal.
I bet the banion of the launch control is what fucking loosened them more.
I failed to record after I looked at the oil, but I am in complete shock right now. It's been like, I don't know, I've just sat here for like the past 40 minutes. Guys, this motor is fine. Drain the oil, not a single ounce of metal in the oil, which is amazing. This long block is fine. The only damage now that we have is, I showed you guys the damage on the crank, because obviously when it's loose at super high RPM, it's just smacking the crank. So it did indent on the crank itself, and then it is raised on the flywheel, as you guys can see. So we can go ahead and try to make it as flat and even as possible. The issue with this, how it sits right now, is the crank will no longer be 100% balanced. And when you don't have a crank that is 100% balanced, it's going to cause wear on the bearings, which will cause premature failure. But we can try to, I don't like using the word like janky because I don't like doing things janky, but we can try to put this together and make it as close to 100% perfect as possible. I'm already like super relieved because at least we will get a little bit more life out of the short block. Regardless, this short block would have been toast. With the Stage X, I just learned this as well with what we would have thought the failure was with a bearing. This is a pinned main block. I don't know the exact specifics, but once you have wear on it, it will never be 100% perfect again. So this short block would have been garbage regardless. So at least now we can put this back together as close to 100% perfect as possible, and we are still able to get life out of this motor. I don't know if you guys can tell, I'm speechless right now. We both, Josh and I, really thought we took this motor out on the dyno. It still never made sense to us because it was during anti-lag that this motor went out. It did not sound like a spun bearing rod knock. If anything, it sounded like we bent a couple rods. But even then, during anti-lag, you don't normally see bent rods happen there, especially with like no load on the car. So we were having a hard time believing that the motor went out, but obviously it sounded like it, and we didn't question it. We didn't think anything else would have possibly gone wrong, especially because this motor has seen so much abuse from me already that we just thought it was tired and gave out. But after pulling this apart, it looks like it was just a backed out flywheel. So I'm going to look in. There is some like locking nuts that they make for the pressure plate or the flywheel. Don't know exactly the brand or terminology for it, but I'm going to look into that to make sure that never happens again and hopefully get as long of a life out of the Stage X as possible. I'm just amazed that we did not blow up this motor on the dyno. So we caught it on fire and I thought we blew it up. So at least we didn't blow it up. We only caught it on fire. So that is a good thing. Yeah, I don't know. I'm speechless. I think that is going to end it for today's video. I was originally just going to tear this apart and try to find the bearing damage or bent rod, figure out what failed. But since nothing failed, obviously there's no point in taking off the heads and all of that stuff. So I need to go ahead and get this reassembled, but it is way later in the day now. And since we have 2 weeks exactly as of today for our first race event, I'm going to take my time. There is no reason for me to rush to get this thrown back together, back in the car today. I can do that in the next video. Make sure we take our time, make sure everything is perfect. And then next week, throw this back on the dyno, turn it down a lot, get this car 100% ready for our first track day. This is about to be my first track event. I could not be more excited. Obviously, we still do have some stuff that we need to go through on this car, like removing the air suspension. But there we have it, guys. The Stage X long block lives to see another day. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video. I hope you guys are as excited as I am that this motor is going to live to see another day. Make sure you guys stay tuned for the following videos. We will be getting this car back together and thrown back on the dyno, dialed in, and this car is just going to sit after it's dialed in preparation for our first event. Thank you guys so much for watching today's video, and I'll see you guys in the next one.